Welcome to In the Middle. I'm Vykky. I'm a wife, a mom, and a leader shaping some of the world's most beloved brands. This is the podcast for all of us figuring it out in real time. In 20 minutes or less, let's get in the middle of it all. I'm so glad you're here. Hey y'all, welcome back to In the Middle. I am so glad you're here. Today feels a little surreal because somehow we are halfway through the year. Halfway. I don't know how this was possible. January literally feels like it was just 5 minutes ago. And yet here we are staring down the second half of the year. And if you're anything like me, that realization comes with like a mix of emotions. Part excitement, part disbelief, and maybe a little bit of panic. And if I'm being honest, a little bit of reflection too. Because halfway through the year has a way of making us look at the intentions we set in January and ask the question, how is that going? Now, before anyone starts spiraling, y'all already know I am team no shame, no guilt. That is not what today is about. This is not going to be time together where I tell you, you should have done this by now. You should have done more of this, or the scale hasn't moved, has it? Nope. We're not doing that. Today is simply about awareness. It's about ownership. And today is about deciding what we want the next 6 months to look like. So all of the reflection we're going to do today, please know that I started this journey on my own first, and I am bringing y'all along in the same way that I've done the entire season of the things that I am truly in the middle of. But before we jump into that, I have a podcast update for you. This is the second to last episode of season 1. This one, and then the next one, and then we are going on summer break. That is wild to say out loud. When I launched this podcast, I honestly didn't know where it was going to go. I knew there were topics that I wanted to talk about that I had been talking about in my personal relationships and things that I felt fire for. I knew I felt called to create something. And I knew there were conversations that I wanted to have with women in the middle of their careers, building their families, their relationships, their finances, their faith, ambition, the uncertainty, all of it. All of the things that come with being in the middle. And now we're here, almost at the end of season 1. Like I said before, I'll be taking the summer off to spend intentional time with my family and friends and to do some groundwork for season 2. I want to build on the momentum, build on the learnings, and bring you an even better season in the fall. I'm working on some updates with the set. Nothing too major, but just kind of meeting my vibe where it is. I'll be looking at what resonated the most with you all this season, and I'd love your help. If there are guests that you'd like to see me interview, like I said, I think in an episode or two ago, I'm going to be bringing interviews in season 2. If there is someone you think I need to have on the pod, please drop their names in my DM, in a comment on the video, wherever you can, get me their names. If there are topics you want to see covered next season, if there is something you want me to drill down into more, send me a message. I know that In the Middle is my baby, but I really do feel like it is being curated by an entire community of women and men. And I think the conversations are most helpful and genuine when I reflect back what I'm hearing in my personal conversations. As you can tell, I am already excited about what's ahead. But before we get there, let's talk about where we are right now. And where we are right now is halfway through the year. I think I shared this before, but I have been reading this book called The 12-Week Year, and it truly has been transformational in my thinking about goal setting, how I manage my time, my level of execution. I think you all know this at this point, but my word for the year is execution. And the 12-week year has just paired so nicely with keeping that front of mind for me. One of the main ideas from the 12-week year that has really challenged my thinking is this idea that a year is simply too long. Think about it. When we set annual goals, January feels urgent, February feels important, March feels manageable, then summer shows up, life happens, work gets busy, kids' activities are never ending, you go on vacation, the unexpected comes your way, and then all of a sudden you are staring June smack dab in the face, and you're wondering, like me, where did the time go? And the premise of the book is, instead of treating a year like a year, treat 12 weeks like a year. Think about it in your quarterly planning, very similar to what you likely experience in your career. The shorter timelines creates this urgency. They force clarity. They make you focus on action instead of intention. And I love that so much because it really forces this accountability that maybe I could excuse away if I knew I had 4 or 5 months to complete the task. And now that's turned into 4 or 5 weeks. And beyond this compressed timeline to take action, I also love this compressed timeline for reflection. I now get 4 major moments in the year to look back across my progress and assess the wins and the opportunities versus getting to December and looking back and saying, wow, I didn't really do much of what I thought I was going to achieve. I love that it gives us the moment that we need to stop and ask ourselves whether our actions are aligned with the life that we're trying to build. So today, I want to be your accountability buddy, not a life coach or a motivational speaker, and I hope that you can be the same thing for me. I want to share a few questions that I've been asking myself, and friend, I don't want you to rush through them. As you know, I am very intentional about making in the middle 20 minutes or less. For the most part, I hit the mark. There are some times where I just want to go on and on about a topic, and I thank you for the grace. But the intentionality of these episodes being brief, it's meant for you to take action, for you to have space to reflect. And I find that when you dedicate an hour to a podcast and then you have to go and do the work, that's just not realistic for me. And I assume a lot of the folks that are listening are in very similar stages in their life. Time is the most valuable resource that we have. And so I hope that one, this episode comes in under 20 minutes, but then two, you treat this like a working episode and you jot down at least some preliminary thoughts about some of the questions that I'm going to pose to you today. So if you haven't already, grab a pen, grab your notebook, or if you're like me and you like to do all of your things on your phone, pick it up and let's get to work. First question, what did you say you wanted this year? Not what everybody else wanted, not what looked good on social media, not even what your family expects. What did you want? Maybe it was a healthier body, a stronger marriage, more time with your kids, maybe a new job, a new business, a deeper relationship with God, whatever it is. Can you still clearly identify it? Does it still align with where you are today? Because sometimes we get so busy living that we forget what we were aiming for in the first place. So take a minute. Maybe you took notes at the beginning of the year or a few months into the year of the things that you wanted to achieve. Go back to those things, or if you didn't write it down, this is a great opportunity to write it down and assess. Does it still meet your goals? Is it still relevant for where you are right now in your life? Guess what? If it doesn't, free yourself. Don't let that thing be a burden because it no longer serves you. So much can change in the span of a month, let alone 6. If it does still resonate with you and it is something you're still working towards, let's bring it back to the front of your mind and work through how you can start to make headway towards those things. And as you're assessing how you can get those things back to be a priority, let's jump into question number 2. Have your actions matched your goals? I know. This one stings a little bit. At least for me, it did. Now, don't get me wrong. I am seeing some wins and I am seeing progress, but I am also seeing opportunities and moments where I could have done more. I could have managed my time better. And there are pockets where I squandered it for a variety of reasons, some of them more valid than others. And hear my heart. I am doing so much better this year than I have in years past of not kicking myself. I am just using this as an opportunity to collect data. I see so clearly where it's like, ooh, I took my eye off the ball over here. It might have been for this project at work that really needed my undivided attention, and that's okay. But how can I better plan? Because work is going to always be there and my family is going to always be there. So how can I better prepare myself looking at the second half of the year that I'm not sacrificing personal goals or opportunities, things that I said I wanted to be a priority this year? I think most of us know what we want. The harder question is whether our habits reflect it. And this is where I'm getting a lot of accountability from the 12-week year. The clock is a lot shorter. It's easier to say we want something. It's harder to do the things consistently that create it. And trust me, I'm talking to myself too. Question number 3, what are you waiting for? Seriously, more money, more time, more certainty, more confidence, the perfect moment. One thing I've learned is that most of the things I've accomplished in my life started before I felt ready, including this podcast. There was no magical moment where I suddenly felt fully prepared. There was just a decision. And I am encouraging you today, stop waiting. There isn't going to be a perfect moment. There will always be some barrier, whether it's time, it's finances, it's health. There's going to always be some form of opposition that will give you a reason to not take action. You simply must start. Just do it. Stop waiting. You are going to look back 6 months from now, a year from now, God forbid, 10 years from now and say, man, had I just started, I'd be this far down the path. I would hate for you to look up and have had this brilliant idea that because you couldn't get the right font, you couldn't get the right graphic designer, you couldn't get the right studio lighting, that you see someone else do a similar idea. They don't execute it like you would have, and they are just oozing with success. You'll have no one to blame but yourself, and I don't want that story for you. So if you take nothing else from this time together, if you don't listen to any other questions, really look yourself in the mirror and say, what am I waiting for? If there isn't a true valid answer, start today. Even the smallest thing. If you need to send an email, if you need to just write out your plan, write out your vision to make it real and tangible, do one thing towards that goal you are working towards. Question number 4, what's really keeping you from progress? And I want you to be honest here. And you don't have to tell me anything. This is why it's so great that it's a podcast. You can talk to me and you won't have to hear my feedback. I want real honesty, not surface level, actual honesty that you can admit to yourself. Because sometimes it's not lack of time. Sometimes it's fear, perfectionism. For those of you listening, I raise my hand because y'all know I'm a recovering perfectionist. Sometimes it's comfort, and sometimes it's avoiding the possibility of failure. When you get free from that, my Lord, I am still working on my freedom from that. And I think that the only way we truly overcome it is getting the reps in and putting ourselves out there and separating who we are from what we do or create. Once you can separate those things, I don't really think that failure will continue to hold you bondage. At least that's what I'm experiencing on my journey. If I have an episode that doesn't do well, I'm like, dang, man, more people didn't listen to that. But you know what it is? It gives me data. And I go back and I listen. I'm like, I wonder what was the gap, or I wonder what wasn't interesting. Maybe it was just the title and people didn't even give it an opportunity to listen to it. And I look back at the episodes that have done really well, and I just collect data and I try to find patterns. I won't consider any episode a failure, candidly, because I learn from every single one that I share. So in the same way, everything that you do, consider it collecting data. Don't give it this black and white pass or fail. It's not that. You're on a journey. We're on a journey, and we are growing, and we are better by the day if we stay curious and we keep trying and we keep taking action. But what you do when you decide to just stay in your comfort, you put yourself in stagnation. And that is when learning and trialing stops, and then you don't make progress. So when you take away this pressure of failure and you position it in its proper spot, which is collecting information and data, that barrier goes away. And that's the reason I'm posing this question to you and why it's so important. When you really get under what's really keeping you from progress, you can diagnose that barrier, because you can't overcome a barrier you refuse to acknowledge. My last question: if nothing changes between now and December, how will you feel? Sit with that one. I know I did. It made me a little squirmy. Maybe close your eyes and imagine it's the end of the year. You have the same habits, the same excuses, the same routines, the same challenges. Would you be okay with that? If the answer is yes, that's okay. But if the answer is no, now is the time to do something different. Not tomorrow, not next month, not after summer. Now. One of the biggest traps I think we fall into is spending so much time mourning the first 6 months of the year that we waste the next 6. Maybe you didn't make the progress that you wanted. Maybe things got harder than you expected. Maybe you hit a roadblock. Maybe you got to know that you didn't see coming. But you know what? You are still here. And as long as you're still here, there is still time. I truly believe that we are all called to achieve specific assignments. And if you're still here, that means that role, that opportunity, that assignment is waiting on you to be obedient and to take charge and to take action and execute. The goal is not to catch up. The goal is to start from exactly where you are today. That's it. Start from where you are. Because friend, let me tell you something. The next 6 months are going to pass, whether you intentionally use them or not. And 6 months is enough time to change a lot, to build momentum, to create discipline, to strengthen relationships, to improve your health, to grow your faith, to launch the thing, to take the trip, to submit the application, to make the phone call, to begin. So here's my challenge. Before you leave this episode, I want you to write down one thing, not 10, one commitment for the next 30 days. It needs to be something meaningful, something measurable, something that moves your life forward. And then do it, not perfectly, consistently, because consistency changes lives. And like I said at the top of our time together, I want to be your accountability buddy. And so if you'd be ever so courageous, send me a DM with the thing that you said you're going to do. And I promise you, I will check in with you across the next 30 days to see how you're working towards that goal. Okay, friend, that's it for today. As always, thank you so much for spending this time with me. Thank you for trusting me with this conversation. If this episode resonated with you, if you and your friends have been talking about, oh my gosh, we're halfway through the year, send them this episode. I pray that it gives them the motivation that they need and the encouragement that they may need, that they have time to start today. If this episode resonated with you, please consider giving it 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. I can't tell you enough how much it helps new people discover the pod. Can I give you one more piece of encouragement? Your story isn't finished. Your year isn't finished, and neither are you. I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to In the Middle. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend and click subscribe so you never miss an honest conversation about life in the middle. I'll see you next time.